Christ is risen. Indeed, he's risen. Thank you for joining in today. I've had requests, people asking, well, that big window at church, what is that church? What is that window and what is it about? And I want to share with you today the window and the importance. We're in the season of resurrection, Christ's resurrection, Easter, if you will. And very importantly, that the windows in our church, we had them created not just to be pretty, but there's a purpose. And as you know, throughout the centuries, art, window, icons, always a way of teaching people the theology, the faith of the mysteries of Christ in his life and his plan of salvation. So today we're in the church, Our Lady's Maronite Parish in Austin, Texas, and our largest window in the church, rightly so, is the resurrection. And I'd like to explain as we go along. The center figure, of course, is Christ. And he's resurrecting from the dead. And actually, this is as soon as he gave up his spirit on the cross, he called out, Father, into your hands I commend my spirit. And he immediately went into Hades. And I talked about this before. He went into the place where the dead, Sheol, and Syriac, Mete, the house of the dead. And all the people from generations of Adam and Eve were there. They were righteous that died. And they also called in the bosom of Abraham. They're like in suspended animation. And even in the creed, we say that Christ, he went and descended into hell. Well, he went into Sheol, Hades. And Hades had gulped one human being up from another, beginning with Adam and Eve. And this is part of the sinfulness of man disconnecting with God. He became mortal. And yes, we all have to die. But here Christ is resurrecting. He took on flesh, and as one of our songs sing on Good Friday, by your death, you have trampled down death, O Lord, and ransomed those that were in the dead. And here we see he's powerful, he's standing up. And not only is he resurrecting, he has on the right side a female he's pulling up from the grave, as you can see below, where they're coming out of, and a man, an old man. And idea that this represents all of humanity. These are the first two people who died, Adam and Eve. And Adam means man, or from the word blood, dam, and woman, Eve, Hawa. And represents masculine, feminine. And as he's resurrecting, he's pulling up all humanity, but he's standing on what? And it's the cross. But look with the cross closer, the cross is formed by the lids of the coffins. Theologically saying, if Adam and Eve had not sinned, you wouldn't have death, and their death has caused the cross. And as Christ is resurrecting, you'll see on the right, John the Baptizer, on the left, kings, representing all of the kings and the prophets who prophesied his coming. And that's very unique, I like it. That his aura is in the shape of what? It's oval, and you'll see it also in other icons of his transfiguration, his ascension. And what it is represents the rainbow. Nothing to do with nowadays situations and the significance of the rainbow as it's used now, but it's of early Christian Hebrew symbolism, and goes back to the time of Noah. After the great flood, God said, I will not destroy mankind by water, but I will save you by water. So it's a sign God put the rainbow in the sky as the sign of his covenant. And here, this is Christ's aura, that this is completion of God's promise, that he would save us by water of baptism. And of course, if you look closely, you'll see mountains, because in the Old Testament, where do people experience God? Always on the mountain. Can you think of a few mountains that you've read in the Bible? Mount Sinai, Mount Horeb, Mount Zion, and even Mount Tabor and Mount Hermon. But always people in the ancient world, they experience God up in the heights. So this is a message of Easter time, that Christ immediately, he freed the people who were in Sheol. And if you read in chapter 26 of Matthew, he says, as soon as he gave up his spirit, that righteous people who had been dead were seeing arriving in Jerusalem and appearing to many people. They were dead, but they were seen. Immediately, his power brings resurrection. So in this Easter season, we wish you again, Christ is risen, and have a blessed Easter. And realize, instead of saying Easter, what does that say? Maybe the direction where Christ rose, always from the east, and he'll come back from the east. But it's better to greet people, Christ is risen. Indeed, he's risen. Thank you for joining us. Look for us again.